Hold on, guys. Let me get some music here going and we'll start.
I had had enough.
Well, you drove out there into the middle of nowhere and had some sort of loud verbal display challenging ET in general out in
Oh
the middle
yeah,
of
that's what
nowhere.
I was doing. I actually had a pistol in my hand at the time. I was really ticked off when I was having this fit. I was waving the gun in the air, okay, and I had this fit. And at this moment, I said, okay.
He was a Louisiana man named Montaldo. Folks around called him Six Gun Joe. Worked with ICAR, don't you know? Investigating UFOs. Out for a drive with a gal one night, they stopped to check out the reporting site. When an alien lit right there on the ground, he commenced to throwing his weight around. Now, old Six Gun didn't take too kindly to that kind of thing, especially without Vaseline or anything like that, Seriously. Well, Six Gun looked that critter right in the eye and said, "Any last wish before you die?" Yo, reached for his gun, quick as a twitch, and said, "Fill your claw, you son of a bitch." Now a legend spread across the land about this pistol-waving man. But if you're from space or from Earth below, you don't give no lip to Six Gun Joe.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Into the Night. But you know what I'm going to do now is I am going to play my intro and I'll be back. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sunday night edition of Into the Night with me, your host, Sean Kelly. How are we doing tonight? Um, yeah, it's starting to get back up in the 80s again. Pittsburgh Steelers won. Um, and see what else is going on. Nothing much. I will tell you this that in October sometime, I'm going to be gone for about 3 or 4 weeks. And so my Sunday night shows are going to be pre recorded, but my Tuesday nights are going to be reruns. So please, while I'm away, come and watch the shows, because I have some really, really good old shows for Tuesday night. Um, and Joni, good to see you. Hi, Michelle. Johnny Topside, good to see you. And Kurt, definitely Kurt, good to see you. Oh, wow. We got all kinds of people in the room. That's great. Hey, Mr. Wojo, good to see you, sir. Um, like I said, Steelers won today. but uh, I'm just doing okay. Um, Want to thank EPRN Talk Radio 105.3 Mississippi, 107.7 New Orleans for allowing me to give you an hour on Sunday nights and Tuesday nights from 8:10 to 9:10 p.m. Eastern. Don't forget, right after my show tonight at 9:10 p.m., it's called the podcast is called "Don't Whistle at Night" with Mr. Don Yazzie. So whenever you're done watching my podcast, just go on over and give them some love. Stop in and say, "Hey, Sean sent you." And don't forget, Tuesday night you got CL, my dear friend, and sometimes my co-host on Sunday nights. And her show is the Gateway Podcast. So again, after you watch my show, just hop on over and give her some love. And yes, we are talking vampires tonight. Well, let me ask you this question, everybody. Okay. So you're walking down a dark street with a couple streetlights. Okay. The wind is blowing. All kinds of noises coming from the alleys or from the streets. You got done watching Interview with a Vampire. And you got to make it home. Because that home is safe. You got your garlic. You got your crosses. You got it all. But back to my little scenario. So you're getting done watching Interview with a Vampire. Do you, I need to ask, hey Joe Fox, I need to ask everybody this. When you're walking home, would you actually look for a vampire on your way home? Would you fear somebody will be jumping out, dressed in a black cape with fangs coming out of their mouth? Hey, Tommy Miller, good to see you, buddy. Tell me, what would you do? Would you be thinking that maybe there is a vampire? Would you be so paranoid that you think, hey, Miss Heidi, good to see you? Would you feel paranoid, or do you think that's just my imagination? So I'm asking this question because I just would like to take a little, just a little, I forgot what you're calling. See what people would do. Do you think vampires exist? I need to ask everybody. Do you think they exist? Kurt said, yes, I would. If I just watched something like that, any noise would probably rattle me. But I think everything you see, you would probably try to put a vampire to it. Okay. Joni says, actually, I'm sure that vampires will be looking for me. Huh. Why is that, Joni? Hey, Miss Mish, good to see you. Any vampires down in Australia there, honey? Just wanted to ask. I don't think so. It's too damn hot down there. But vampires intrigued me for the longest time growing up. I used to watch the vampire movies. And as I got older, I really got into the vampire genre. And what I liked about the vampire movies was that, hey, Tara, good to see you, hon. Thank you for stopping in. Hey, Tara, are there any vampires up there in Butler? This one, the smell of blood. Hey, Sherry, good to see you. I'm doing great. Couldn't be better. Now, I'm going to ask you this question, Miss Madigan. Have you seen any mooses? But no, that's what fascinated me about the vampires, was what growing up. And it just seems like, it felt like at the time, because, I wasn't really, very well liked, or, people didn't want to hang out with me. Hey, Donna, good to see you, hon. And I was like kind of a loner. But whenever it came around Halloween, I used to work at the haunted houses. And whenever I played Dracula, I felt empowered. I felt like nothing could touch me, you know. I felt like I had the control over people as they were walking through the haunted house. And it just was, it always impressed me, you know. And of course, you know, the B rated vampire, um, you know, the women who are vampires, you know, pretty sexy vampire women and stuff like that. Joe Fox says, my very first book as a young kid, just getting to reading, was Bram Stoker's Dracula. I wish she kept that paperback. And back then, I just felt that I was like as one of the vampire. You know, I was part of that. I guess you want to call it a genre. Yeah, Sherry's in here hiding, or else he's looking for mooses, one or the other. Vampire mooses. That's funny. But I always felt that I wanted to be one. Mhm. Sherry said she just finished all of Wayne Mallow's vampire books. Really good. So I'm asking everybody here in the chat room, what is your um, fascination about vampires? I would really like to hear everybody's opinion. Mitch says, wonder if there's a difference between being scared of a vampire or feared might give it power. And Kurt says, if there's no vampires, and I don't understand these cults or whatever that drink blood, who would ever want to do that? Well, you know what? I did read up a little bit of it a long time ago. Donna says, I love the old vampire movies. Yes. But Kurt, back to your question there. Yes, there are cults, and I do believe you have to get. I mean, there's a lot of. This you're funny. All Scottish vampires they eat blood sausage. I've had blood sausage. I liked it. Sherry says, knowing all the history they lived through, the power in being immortal. But back to you, Kurt. Um, they have. I mean, they have to sign a waiver. You know. I know a lot of them. Uh, you know, give their blood for different types of favors. And I guess it depends on the certain person. I know some that drink from what they call an intravenous. I know they do that. But then again, I like what Sherry had to say because um, immortal. Heidi says the swag, the power in being immortal. And like I was explaining to you guys earlier, you know, at one point in time when I was growing up, that's all I wanted to be was a vampire. You know, could never ever figure out why I wanted to be one. And then it just seems like getting older and being on this UPR and talk radio, um, now I'm starting to understand. Kurt says it just seems demonic to me to drink the life of another living being. There are clubs or gatherings here I read or heard somewhere, never have been there, of course, but you know, I wouldn't mind going to one of them clubs, you know, and just to see what it is. You know, they all dressed up like really, really cool outfits, you know what I mean? And they take it really serious. It's like role playing. I forget the name of it. Role play, I guess, if you want to call it. My brother does it, but not as a vampire. But I don't know. But what I want to get into tonight, okay, and of course I got my trusty AI here, and I'm going to read a little bit of it. and we can go from there. Um, so sit back, enjoy, smoke a cigarette, get a coffee, and let's have some fun. Okay? All right, so the early origins. Okay, vampire origins begin with the ancient fears of death and disease, particularly Eastern European folklore, where the Slavic upir, or vampire, emerged, but the term and many modern characteristics were lately shaped by written records and social anxieties. Beliefs about these reanimated corpses, often blamed for plagues and misfortunes, led to practices like staking, and burning them to prevent their return. Historical explanations for these beliefs include misunderstood postmortem body changes that can make a corpse appear to be the undead, and diseases like rabies or tuberculosis, which exhibit symptoms like blood loss, aggression, or paleness. Heidi says there's a witchy kayak festival too here at Cherry Creek, which is on the water or something. That's pretty interesting. Might have to check that out and see what it's all about. But the vampires are in photos. Huh, interesting. But there you go, everybody. It started off as folklore, okay? Just like the shit with the Salem witch trials. Everything was a story. And, what the hell? So, if people believe that, then you know what? God bless them for believing in vampires or what they think. I know it was mass hysteria over there in Eastern European, okay? And when somebody says something and puts the fear of God into them, they're going to start talking and they're going to start reacting, and then everybody's going to have a story, and so those stories are being put together, and they were brought down from generation to generation to generation. So I can see where it could be a folklore, but there's a lot of people out there that really truly believe vampires exist. And to be honest with you, I don't believe they do. Okay? But vampires are part of Halloween, and this is my Halloween series. So I thought about bringing up the vampires. But as I continued looking at my great friend AI and all the stuff that he was telling me, or she, it was like really, really interesting. Now, the early origins in folklore, the ancient precursors, vampiric creatures or spirits that preyed on the living, existed in myths from, check this out, ladies and gentlemen, Mesopotamia, ancient Greece, and Jewish folklore, like Lilith. So they're kind of saying like maybe Lilith was a vampire. Thoughts, questions, answers? I'd like to hear your theory on that. Do you think Lilith was a vampire? Long before the modern concept of vampires emerged. Eastern European roots. The modern vampire myth is rooted in the Slavic traditions in southeastern Europe, particularly around the 11th century. Miss said, what happened to Vampire Lady? She would help them find people to feed them. Oh, I don't know. I don't know nothing about Vampire Lady. But I'm sure there's a lot of vampire ladies out there right now. I don't know. I don't know that answer, Miss. So, again, it's all because of Europeans, and that's okay. Bulgaria is a big place. Um, Transylvania, you got Dracula's castle up there, the Dark Castle, and they claim that he drank the blood of all the people he has killed and put their heads on spears to scare off. I don't know if it was the Mongolians or whoever it was, but then again, if you look at him, Vlad, he really wasn't a bad person at all. You know, he was just a person who was trying to protect his kingdom. And I guess when people saw what he did to the people he was fighting, you know, is that possible chance that he could have, like, said, they could have said, oh, there's Dracula. You know what I mean? There he is, there's Drac. I don't know. That's what makes looking things up fascinating for me, you know. Besides Kurt, who else out there has any opinions about vampires? Do they exist? How do you feel about them? Please share them in the room. We can talk about it. There's Dracula. He sucks. No shit, Mish. That's fun. So the Upir, that's UPIR, the word Upir, a possible source for vampire, describe dead individuals who return from their graves, often causing disease. Sherry says Miss DeRoche had a lady on who says that she was young. Her handlers would take her with them, and when they went to feed the vampires, they brought young women. Interesting. That's interesting. I did not know about that. Was that possibility in the past life when she had a past lifer's, reading? I know in past reading, past life readings, I know I was a witch, and I know I was hung, because even to this day, I can't wear no jewelry at all. I can't wear no rings. I can't wear no necklaces. I can't have anything around my wrist or around my neck, because I choke. And I'm talking real long chains too. I choke. I can't have anything like that. So maybe, that sounds interesting. I might have to bring it up to Michelle. Wolfman Gabriel. That's interesting. I don't know. That's interesting, Johnny. You might have to check that out. Heidi says, oh my hell, she most definitely would, probably in just a couple phone calls. Yeah, I would. I'd definitely get her on. We can talk about that. So, hey, Lisa, good to see you. Welcome. You think her name is Beverly Rhodes? Okay. I'm going to have to ask her about that. Van Helsing. Okay. I saw them movies. They were great. It's good to see you in the room there, Lisa. But the misunderstanding disease and death in times of poor sanitation and limited medical knowledge, communities blame supernatural beings for outbreaks of disease, unexplained deaths, and natural disasters. That's interesting. Misunderstanding disease and death. So back then, the sanitation was like really bad, okay, and people were dying. So, and people didn't have no answer. So they basically just blamed supernatural beings, which I would think would be the vampires. But if you look back, and that's in the 11th century. Now, if you go into the Salem witch trials, it's the same thing that happened. The doctors did not know what was causing these people to get sick, and so they blamed it on the witches. And Joni says, wasn't there a king who would drink human blood? I forgot his name, but his picture is on the cover of the magazine that is advertised on this channel. That was Vlad. That was Vlad. I don't know, Dracula. But Sherry says, I don't see anyone else in chat. Happens to me sometimes all alone. I'm sorry you're all alone. I'm sorry about that. I do believe that, yeah, that was Vlad. He was on. Vlad, there you go, Miss. But so if you take the origins of, the vampire, breakout, compare it to the Salem witch trials, people did not know or understand what was going on, and so they blame it on the witches in Salem and on supernatural beings back in the 1100s. The scientific and culture factors, Kurt says, I think Vlad just got a bad rap. Also, he was just showing everyone how crazy he could be to warn everyone off and keep his kingdom safe. And you are so correct, Kurt. I believe that too. Just like I believe that Lucifer got a bad deal, and he was considered Satan, but you all know where I'm at with that. Cat, hey Cat, good to see you, hon. Cat says, I love vampires. There are underground vampire clubs in Canada and probably the US too. If you want to donate, these are the places. No clue how it's done though. I didn't know about that in Canada. I know, Cat, I know down in New Orleans where Joe's at, they definitely do have them. Okay. Let me see. Kat says, nice to be here, love. Nice to be here, too. But we are at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to go on a quick break, and then we'll come back, and we'll talk a little bit more about vampires. So stay tuned. I'll be back in a couple minutes, and go smoke a cigarette, go to the bathroom, do what you have to do. And, I'm surprised Veckril isn't in about... with our coffees. I wonder where she's at. Okay, I'll see you in a couple minutes, everybody.
Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away.
Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward.
The night has come, it's cold and losing my control. Your light is gone, and lonely darkness fill my soul. I wish that you could save me from my isolation. It's way too complicated. Let's start this conversation. Let's start this conversation. We got no relation. I have come, it's cold and losing my control. The light is gone,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Into the Night, Sunday night edition with me, your host, Sean Kelly. I want to thank UPRN Talk Radio, 105.3 New Orleans, Mississippi, 107.7 New Orleans. Don't forget the podcast, Mr. Don Yazzie, Don't Whistle at Night. He comes on at 9:10 right after my show, Eastern Time. Lisa Kirk wrote something in here. And she says, Cat Ward, most of them have a licensed phlebotomist that comes in and does the blood draws for them. These are usually people in the medical field that are already members. Thank you for sharing that, Lisa. I appreciate that. That was cool. I'm going to read that again. Cat Ward, most of them have a licensed phlebotomist that comes in and does the blood draws for them. These are usually people in the medical field that are already members. Lisa, thank you very much for that, for sharing that. So we are getting down to part 2 of Into the Night with me, your host, Sean Kelly. If I seem a little bit out of small, if I don't look like I'm into this, I'm not really. I'm trying my best to do the best I can here with this. But one day I'm going to come out with a show and I'm going to tell everybody what's going on with me, because I don't like to leave people out in the cold. So please bear with me, and I want to thank everybody who is in the chat room listening to the show tonight. And I got all my beautiful people that are in the chat room, which I call my angels, and they're here too to support me, which I think is great. So back when they would bury people, they would break the people's bones. Okay. They would stick stakes in their heart, just to make sure that they did not rise from the dead to their graves. And the AI people say, based on folkloric accounts and archaeological findings, the bones of suspected vampires were broken to ensure they could not rise from the grave. People historically used extreme measures, such as dismemberment and decapitation, fueled by misunderstandings of diseases like tuberculosis and natural decompensation. So, and because I remember I heard about it and I saw about it a long time ago, to where, when the vampire craze was like really, really going, they would break the bones, and so these people couldn't rise. And I remember that, and that's like from 20 years ago, I do believe, or even, thank you, Gay, God, Siri, Heidi. Yes, please, Mish, if you want to send me some healings, I would appreciate it. Heidi says, we have a vampire lord here in Lafayette, Colorado. He's in a cemetery, and his story is wild. And I have to read up on that. Another reason was that they were controlling disease during the epidemics, such as the plague. Corpses that did not decay as expected, or that appeared bloated and healthy, were sometimes thought to be the feeding of the living. Mutilating the body was believed to stop the supposed vampire from spreading illness. For example, a 16th century skull of a woman in Venice found with a brick in her mouth was likely part of her ritual to stop the spread of plague. That's pretty interesting. Kat says, we have vampire lore here in Wilna, Ontario, Canada. Maybe Kat, get you on the show, or we can do a recording show and we can talk more about the lore up there, about the Canadian vampires. That would be like a really cool show. Okay, now, misinterpreting decomposition. Natural decomposition can produce unsettling effects that were misinterpreted as signs of vampirism. As a body bloats from gases, blood can be forced up and out of the mouth. giving the appearance that the corpse has been feeding. Breaking or piercing the body was seen as a way to deflate the corpse and stop it from bloating. Oh man, that's great, Cat. We gotta set something up, dude. Excuse me, dudette. Targeting at-risk individuals. Not everyone was subject to these rituals. Some were targeted for deviant burials due to other circumstances. This included individuals who practiced witchcraft, those who died violently, or anyone who did not receive a proper Christian burial. Mitch said this in another show. When my mom passed away, I'd say it our path unless you're vampires, but even then, the stakes are high. God bless you, Mitch. Kurt says, does anyone have any idea where vampires stay during daylight hours? Or are they just normal people and switch when the sun goes down? Kat might be able to answer that. Lisa might be able to answer that for you. There's also a disease out there, Kurt, that people can't stay in the daylight or the sunshine because it affects them and it affects their skin. I don't know what the disease is, but maybe they do go to sleep when the sun comes up. I don't know, but it's all vampire. It's all lore. It's all one big story. It's one big story with about 1 million different little small stories. Cat Ward said, I burn in the shades, so maybe. That's funny. I'm more productive at night, that daylight. Okay. Other anti-vampire burial methods. In addition to breaking bones, people practice a range of other rituals to ward off suspected vampires. Of course, everyone knows about the staking. Okay, Kevin, good to see you, buddy. Driving a wooden or iron stake through the chest was a common method, particularly in Slavic cultures. Decapitation. Some burials involve completely removing the head and placing it between the legs or away from the body. Weighting the body, placing heavy rocks or stones on the corpse. That was another way to physically pin it to the grave. And burying it face down. Some bodies were buried face down in the belief that if they woke, they would dig further into the earth instead of rising to the surface. That's crazy. That is so crazy. I can just imagine being back in that times when all this stuff was going on. I mean, I'd go into a time machine and go back. I would. I definitely would do that. But it's just amazing how you can take a story, you can take a folklore. Bram Stoker, his vampire book was based off of Lores. Lores, guys. And just like the witches of Salem, how they all got a raw deal. And I guarantee it that these people here who were, had some type of disease and someone said, oh, you're a vampire, so we're going to stake you or break your bones or do what we got to do so you don't rise from the dead and start sucking our blood. Kurt says, give them an inch and they take a mile. Seems to be the most of these loves. I agree, Sean. Yeah. But I guess as the centuries went on and the millennials have just moved on, you take something from the 11th century who really didn't have a quite understanding on what the hell was going on and bring it up to the 21st century to where people are a lot smarter now, Kat says, I know someone who was chosen by the Stoker family to write the prequel to Dracula. J.D. Barker called Dracul, I believe. Oh, Kat, I can't wait to get you on the show, honey. When Kat comes on, that's what we're talking about, vampires. Absolutely. But so reading these things to you tonight, I just thought I'd get, I would, tell you and show you, what the real deal with vampires are at. But if Catton says that there are clubs in Canada and here in the United States, vampire cults, it'd be like really, really cool to have them on our show. That's the problem with not getting the actual proof and correct story as soon as you can. The further it goes, it grows out like a tree with branches. That is so true, Kurt, just like the witch is the same. The one story started and all of a sudden everybody was a witch. One person got some type of disease like tuberculosis, and all of a sudden everybody who got tuberculosis, they died. They got whatever. Heidi says, I have to drive. We're getting nacho stuff for dinner. Hugs to you. Thank you for being in. I'd love to interview someone who frequent those clubs. We'll get there, Kat. We'll get somebody to do it. Heidi, enjoy your meal. Please stay safe. So, my last thing I did look up, though, was I asked AI, are there real vampires in New Orleans? That's the question I asked AI. And the answer I got was no. Real vampires do not exist in New Orleans. However, the city is a hub for vampire lore and a modern-day vampire subculture, largely due to Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles. The city's historic atmosphere, cemeteries, and unique folklore, including tales of the Casket Girls and figures like Jacques Saint-Germain, have contributed to its enduring reputation as a legendary vampire city, attracting visitors' interest in the mythos. Squatch, man, good to see you. Hey, Squatch, down there in South Carolina, do they have any, you got any vampires or werewolves down there in the woods besides Bigfoot? Thought I'd ask. Vampire lore and history. Early folklore, vampire myths were brought to New Orleans by the early French and Spanish settlers. This is interesting. We might have to do a show on this. The Casket Girls. A specific legend involves young women arriving in the 18th century with small chest caskets, leading to rumors that they were carrying vampires in them. And Jacques Saint-Germain, this figure is one of New Orleans' most famous vampire legends, rumored to be an ancient and powerful vampire. And Anne Rice's influence, The Interview with the Vampire. Anne Rice's novels, particularly Interview with the Vampire, solidified New Orleans' image as a quintessential vampire city in modern culture. Literary legacy, her work inspired a fascination with the city's vampire mythology and led to numerous books, movies, and tours centered on the theme. So I would have to say, let's go to New Orleans, everybody. Let's go down and knock on Joe Montaldo's door and let him take us like vampire hunting. Modern vampire culture, self-proclaimed, there we go. Self-proclaimed vampires. New Orleans is home to a self-identified vampire subculture where their individuals adopt the lifestyle and aesthetic of vampires, though they are not considered supernatural beings. There you go. The cat says Joe needs to have a UPRN party and fly us all down. He has to hit the lottery in order to do that, Cat. That would be cool, though. But the self-proclaimed vampires, New Orleans is home to a self-identified vampire subculture. The vampire-themed establishments, the city boasts numerous businesses catering to vampire enthusiasts, such as a themed restaurant like the New Orleans Vampire Cafe, bars, and boutiques. And even in New Orleans, they give vampire tours. That would be cool. I mean, I've gone on so many damn ghost ones. You know, it'd be nice to go on a vampire tour. So, vampire tours. The city offers vampire tours and ghost tours that explore the historical and fictional connections to vampires, drawing on the myths and legends that have become synonymous with New Orleans. So, long story short, let's all go down to New Orleans and take a vampire tour. Kurt says, New Orleans reminds me of the home of the voodoo. It's all the kinds of weird stuff goes on there. Yes, it is. I do believe New Orleans was a port where everybody came into, Haitians and you know, maybe I can get Joe on here and we can talk about that, you know, because that sounds like really, really interesting stuff. Kat Ward says it's her dream to visit New Orleans. Yes, I was there one time and we were only in for 2 days. I stayed on duty on the ship for the one day and didn't really get to go out and explore downtown New Orleans. But from what Joe tells me, New Orleans is like a crazy, wonderful, beautiful place to go to. You know what, Kat? One day your dream's going to come true and you'll be in New Orleans. Well, it's getting pretty close to the end of the show here. I hope some people got a little bit of knowledge of the vampires tonight. I know I did, you know, before the show when I was reading a little bit. And I thought it was really, really interesting. But the only sad thing about the whole show was how everything just started with a story back in the 11th century that brought on all this crazy, stupid reasons why they break bones and stake them with wood or steel and wood over a war. But those wars, you know, if it wasn't for the wars, though, you got to look on it. It's like a double-edged sword. The wars, you know, actually got Bram Stoker to write his book, which started the vampire craze. And then you also got Anne Rice. Look what she did. My God, she's a beautiful, beautiful writer, a beautiful book writer. Lessons, careful what we say. Thanks for that. It's okay, Kat. I'm sorry that you missed the beginning of the show, but if you know, if you get the opportunity, you know, just check out the first show. Everything would be like pretty cool. Well, this is part of my Halloween thing that I'm doing. Like I told you at the beginning of the show, okay. There are some weeks here in October and maybe the first week in November. I'm not going to have any live shows. My Sunday shows are going to be pre-recorded, and my Tuesday night shows are going to be, you know, reruns of shows even before you guys got to know me. Kevin says, sounds like I missed a good show tonight. Had a meeting at work and got out late. Yes. Oh, thank you for rewatching it. But I want to thank everybody for coming in and listening to the show this Tuesday. Who knows who I'm going to have on, but it's going to be a good show because all my shows are good. Pat myself on the back there, got to. Sherry, hopefully you got a moose that comes up to your house. If a moose comes up to your house, Sherry, honestly, you better have a camera ready and take a picture. Take care of you too, Sherry. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michelle. Children, if you can, please go to your parents, give them a hug and tell them that you love them. And parents, please go to your children, give them a hug and tell them that you love them. And if you have no parents and if you have no children, find somebody, give them a hug and tell them that you love them. Because those 3 words, I love you, go a long way. And on that note, good night, everybody. See you Tuesday night. Good night.